Health Effects Institute estimates that at least 32,000 people die every year in Ghana from exposure to fine particulate matter. The biggest sources of this toxic mix are burning and tailpipe emissions. By 2018, Accra's Central Business District alone was emitting more than 4 million tons of carbon dioxide, levels which Director of Transport of the Accra Metropolitan Assembly, Alex Johnson, says were far beyond what planners had anticipated.
2018, when we first launched our climate action plan, the projection was to achieve a reduction that sees emission levels at about 4 million metric tons in 2035. But by 2021, when Google made some data available, Environmental Insights Explorer made some of these data resources available, we realized that we were even already clocking 4 million metric tons emissions within a certain sector of the Accra space, especially towards the CBD.
Environmental scientist Dr. Raphael Aku says the evidence back then already pointed clearly to the sources.
We have discovered that there are about 4 to 6 major sources that are polluting the air in Accra. It includes traffic, waste burning, dust particles, even construction, among other things are contributing. Even sea salt, because Accra is on the ocean.
Government's response was the Emissions Levy. The Emissions Levy Act, passed in December 2023 and implemented in February 2024, imposed annual charges of 75 to 300 cedis on petrol and diesel vehicles based on engine size. Government said the levy would cut emissions and fund environmental action. But even as the levy took effect, skepticism followed quickly from drivers on the road.
The
government could have engaged the ordinary citizens on this as well. We as passengers have little to say on this issue because we have no choice.
Too much.
From lawmakers in Parliament,
they have signed on to an IMF conditionality which compels government to raise the threshold of the revenue as a percentage of GDP to a certain level. And so they are looking at every means to tax the people of Ghana.
And even from clean air advocates who questioned the levy's real intention.
If you want to use emissions levy as a tool to reduce pollution, the way you target it is different. What I think we were trying to introduce in Ghana, in my humble opinion, and this is my personal opinion, I thought was more of a revenue generation tool than
Many argue that the levy, although framed as an environmental measure, functioned more as a revenue pipeline than a true deterrent to pollution. So when Parliament repealed the levy in 2025, it came as little surprise.
Emissions tax repeal bill. So emissions levy is gone.
Atmospheric scientist Dr. Daniel Westerveld, who has spent years tracking Ghana's pollution trends, set out to measure the levy's real impact during the single year it was in force.
We didn't find a whole lot of specific policies that were targeting air pollution, but we did find things like this emissions levy, which wasn't maybe designed purely to tackle air pollution, but had it as one of the possible co-benefits.
Using satellite data and ground-level sensors, Dr. Westerveld found the levy delivered almost nothing. Transport-related pollution remained virtually unchanged, with no measurable drop in fine particulate matter, even outside the Harmattan season.
That's right. We do have what we're calling the Gridded Africa Surface Pollution Dataset, or GRASP for short. And it also goes back all the way to the year 2005 up to the end of 2024. we compared February 2024 through the rest of 2024 to previous years. So we compared February 2024 to February 2023 to February 2022 to February 2021, etc. That way, you can sort of control for the fact that there is seasonal changes in the PM 2.5. The other thing that we did is we looked at it in different months. So it's not just February, it's all the months of the year that, so we looked at, for example, June of 2024 and compared that to June of 2023, 21, 22, et cetera. So we were able to actually look at non-harmattan periods as well to see if there was any changes that would be completely independent of the harmattan. And even in those cases, there wasn't any statistically significant changes in PM 2.5 that could be attributed just to the emissions levy.
Over the period, vehicle numbers continued to rise, fuel consumption did not slow, and no behavioral shifts were recorded among drivers. On the streets of Accra, some drivers told us that the levy never changed how they drove, serviced their engines, or thought about pollution.
There
was no need for the levy. The smoke is nothing bad.
The government to give our money back because they have cheated us. You see somebody coming back, the way the smoke is coming in, you yourself, you regret.
Government would have done.
How can you able to say that you are collecting air pollution tax? How? No.
Meanwhile, tailpipe emissions in Accra have remained high and largely unchanged for nearly 20 years, according to Associate Professor of Environmental Health Sciences, Dr. Raphael Ako.
What we have found out is that the proportion that is coming from traffic remains the same. It hasn't changed over the last 20 years. So how much traffic is contributing to air pollution in Accra has remained stable.
Fresh research from PSS Urbania, led by Dr. Joseph Ayetio, is now helping to map pollution hotspots across part of Accra, revealing where exposure is highest.
Across the 30 MMDAs, the very common causes of pollution, which I'm sure would not be shocking to you, had to do with transportation. Was a major contributor to the kind of quality, poor quality that emitted, that contributes to poor air quality. And then burning of firewood and open burning of rubbish was another major activity that was identified across most of the local authorities. Across the 52 sites, most sites had levels below the EPA and then the World Health Organization levels, except 4 major sites. And these were Ayawaso North, and particularly in Ayawaso North and Ladade Kotopon municipality.
Researchers believe that if Ghana targets the right sources, particularly traffic, burning and waste management, significant pollution reductions are achievable.
Those responsible can target these 2 sources: traffic, biomass burning, and then waste burning. When we do that, we can cut down air pollution level by 50% or even more than 50% in Accra.
So certain African countries have put into place, restrictions on how old and how sort of polluting the vehicle that you can import from Europe or the US or Canada or, another wealthy country. They've put some restrictions on that to help reduce the local pollution from these sort of dirty old cars. Other things would be, enhancing the level of public transportation. This would mean buses, trains, even things like bicycles and electric scooters and all those kinds of things. Those are sort of the new emerging frontier of clean travel. And then the last thing that I would say really has nothing to do with vehicles, but cleaner cooking fuels. And the challenge with the cleaner cooking fuels is it has to be affordable. As I was kind of mentioning earlier, folks that are cooking with wood or charcoal are doing so because it's cheap.
The repeal of the emissions levy ends a chapter, but not the crisis. Clean air advocates say a new conversation must begin, not about taxing emissions, but about actually reducing them. For Joy News, I am Michael Ashale. This story was a collaboration with New Narratives. Funding was provided by the Clean Air Fund, which had no say in the story's content.